to our free webinar on soulmate relationships. Today we're going
Wait, do that again. You can't just do that. Go again.
Welcome to our free webinar on soulmate relationships. Today we're going to explore some of the very important aspects of these relationships and to take a look at what are they all about and how can people bring this type of love into their lives, Ahonu, and what does it mean in the bigger picture?
You just heard Aingeal Rose, and I am Ahonu, and we would really like to explore the deeper, more meaningful aspects of soulmate relationships. And we're going to introduce a few things to you that you may not have heard before and that you may not have realized what these kinds of relationships are about and what they can do and where they can bring you. So there's going to be a few things that we're going to get into some depth here. But first of all, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. And we also want to share some slides with you. So let's get all that moving right now. Okay, let's share that screen and let's get ourselves started here. So we're looking at a journey of consciousness through soulmate relationships. That's effectively what we're looking at.
Right.
And we're going to be talking about relationships in general. And then we're also going to talk about where they lead to in terms of spiritual relationships. And we also want to go into a little discussion about whether these relationships that everybody has in their lives, whether they're actually fate or destiny. And Aingeal Rose loves this discussion, and she's a master at it because she's been prizing apart the difference between these two things, fate versus destiny, for years. But first of all, let's just say that we're not going to go longer than 45 minutes for this. And that's important. We don't want to take up too much of your time, but also what we're going to cover here is really just a surface level. It's just a basic introduction as to what we're going to cover in greater detail later on. And we would ask you to turn off your cell phones and move away from Facebook and so on, and get away from these distractions for a few minutes, because this is a promise that we want to make to you. We're going to give you the best of us for this short period of time, and you may find some little nuggets of useful information in it. We would advise that you also have a pen and paper, or you can use your computer to write on, but it's important that you do take notes. We're going to be covering some really groundbreaking things. So what qualifies us, Aingeal Rose, to be able to talk about a journey of consciousness through soulmate relationships?
Well, I, for one, Ahonu, have had numerous soulmate relationships in my life, probably more than most people. And you also have had some soulmate relationships. And, you know, I've learned a lot through my own soulmate relationships. I've learned why particular people came in my life at certain times. I've learned why they did end up romantic or didn't end up romantic. I learned a lot about my own soul path, as I went through these relationships. And, all of that too led me to you, which is a twin flame relationship, which is not what we're discussing today, but we will be in the future. And how these relationships are different. They're not the same.
Aingeal Rose is being very gentle with that introduction because she has been through some fairly extreme relationships, and that's my word, extreme. And this is what gives her and I the ability to be able to see what was really going on. For example, she's had her first husband, for example, was murdered after 3 months of marriage. Another relationship committed suicide right in front of her. And these kinds of relationships led her to ask the questions, what's going on? What did I do to attract these people into my life? What's the deeper meaning behind all of this? And that's what we're going to share with you today. So with that, let's get into relationships in general, because I think it's fair to say that most people might feel that they have soulmate relationships, because this is a kind of concept that's been embodied in drama in the movies. So when somebody feels that kind of spark of excitement as a youngster in their classroom or their school or their first date or all of that kind of thing, they say, oh, he or she is my soulmate. So we do want to talk about that first, and then we'll move into the more spiritual side of things.
Well, there's many relationships that are not soulmate relationships, though. There's relationships that we have with people that are brand new, as a soul. They're brand new, and we've not ever met these people before. It could be the first time, for example, that you find yourself in a particular family with particular siblings. It could, and many people sometimes they feel they don't have any connection at all to their family and want to know why they were even born into that family. Okay, other relationships are, they're designed just for particular 3D experiences, and they don't necessarily have a deeper soul connection to them. So I wanted to distinguish that first.
But they're all born out of a desire for love, though. Isn't that fair to say?
Well, yeah, I think everybody wants to be loved. Everybody in the world has a desire for love on a certain level. And so that's the basis for relationships in general. Why do we want to commune with anybody? Or if we've been traumatized, why do we wall ourselves off from that while still longing for one?
But a new concept that we're introducing here is the possibility that traditionally people may have had the understanding that a soulmate was a lover. And we're saying a soulmate can be a parent-child relationship. It can be a student-teacher relationship. It can be a sibling, brother-sister, sister-sister, brother-brother. It can be all kinds of combinations. And as Aingeal Rose said earlier on, they can begin in the family, because this is where we feel that first love and that desire for continuing love. So it can be all kinds of different combinations. Now, I know people will want us to go down the road of the lover kind of relationship, and we will start to go there now with this. So the law of attraction, Aingeal Rose, is what is driving a lot of our traditionally understood soulmate relationships. What is that all about?
Well, the law of attraction is really a law that says like attracts like. Okay, or the way it was actually told to me by Spirit was like attracts to itself that which it is. And it's the fundamental law of creation. Okay, and it does matter what we are composed of. It does matter what's in our soul plan. It does matter where we've been in other lifetimes, what we've encountered. It does matter what we've encountered this lifetime and the conclusions we've come to. All of these things accumulate inside of us, and they build up our aura, and they build up our soul impressions. And the law of attraction just brings to us a mirror image of whatever the accumulation of that is. Okay, so in regards to relationships, and we'll talk more about the soul plans that people actually make. We'll talk about that later. But it just is first important to establish whether you're in a soulmate relationship, whether you're not and you want to be, that is kind of a foundational energy that's behind everything. What kind of love you experience, if you experience love, if you've had successful relationships, if you've had ones that are not successful, it all has to do with the law of attraction. And that's not to say, we don't want people going down the road where they say, oh, well, so if my relationships didn't work out, then it's my fault. No, we're talking simply about a neutral law that doesn't have an ability to judge. It doesn't have the ability to have an opinion or filter. It just makes more of what it has to deal with. So that's basically the law of attraction, and anybody can change what they attract.
Yes. So the law of attraction has caused some difficulty to people in the past, because as Aingeal Rose says, why are you not attracted to certain people and you do feel attracted to others? Because what you're composed of in terms of where you are in terms of your own life, the magnetism of your own construct is what brings these kinds of relationships to you. So if you're not in that perfect relationship that you want to be, it's really what's going on in yourself. And this is what the law of attraction is all about. Now, we have other things to say about the law of attraction that are in a more advanced course, and they don't always agree with people's perception of what the law of attraction is. And that's why we just want to mention it here at a surface level, that that's usually what's going on when people talk about relationships.
Well, it's always what's going on.
It's always what's going on.
Okay.
But there's also something missing for a lot of people. And this is where we want to try and fill the holes, because many times people feel they're in a soulmate relationship, but they also feel that there's something unfulfilled. Isn't that right?
Well,
you're hesitating.
Well, we're hesitating because people can be in all kinds of relationships. I don't know, regular mundane ones like we've been talking about, or where they feel that there's something missing. They're aware that there could be a higher type of love that they haven't experienced yet, or connection, a particular type of connection they want to have with somebody. And they may well like the people in their lives fine. They may well have a partner or a husband that is a perfectly nice partner and there's nothing wrong with them, if you know what I mean. But they still might feel that there's something missing. Mm-hmm. And that's usually an inner remembrance of the possibility of deep connection.
So that's where we want to go with this. We want to go to that deep connection. We want to try and get into what we're calling spiritual relationships. Now, you'll see the slide we have on the screen right there. That's not the kind of relationship that we're talking about, in the sense that we want to try and get to what's really going on. We all understand sexual attraction. We all understand that law of attraction. But we want to know, in terms of soulmate relationships, what's going on at the deeper level? What are they? What are soulmate relationships, Aingeal Rose, in terms of it being a spiritual relationship?
Well, soulmate relationships I think they're set up before you ever incarnate. I think they're pre-planned. I think they are special meetings that you have with particular people. And like you mentioned earlier, they could be, they're not necessarily always romantic. They can have a lot of purposes to them. Usually, though, the underlying energy is that they're for growth of some type. Or accomplishment, or soul accomplishment. And like I say, they can be somebody who is a sibling to you. They could be your parents. They could be your teachers. You may be the teacher. They could be someone you're going to work on projects with. They can even be enemies. They can be people indeed, that yes. Show up in your life that you feel you've known before, and your first meeting with them sets off a red flag. Okay? They can be all sorts, but once again, they are designed for self-growth in some way.
So is that something new to you? Just think about this for a moment in terms of your own relationship. Is it possible, have you ever considered that somebody who you may regard as an enemy or an adversary, that could be a soulmate, and they're acting out and you're acting out that relationship so that there may be some deeper spiritual growth in it for you or him or her? Is that possible? Just think about that. And that's where your pen and paper comes in. Write down the answers to these kinds of questions, because they are important to explore them. That an enemy, and we're not using that word either in terms of a hate, but somebody who you haven't heretofore regarded as a possible soulmate relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't always have to be negative. I hope you don't.
They don't have to be negative.
We don't want you Absolutely. Thinking that we only want you exploring people that.
I'm just opening the possibility that somebody could be a soulmate if they are an adversary to you. So the purpose of a spiritual relationship, Aingeal, what What could it possibly be leading to? What's
Well,
it for?
I mentioned that earlier. The purpose of them usually is for some sort of growth. And everybody, when they come in an incarnation, has set up something that they want to get accomplished in their life on a soul level. And that doesn't just mean that they take on a conscious spiritual path, for example. It could be something as simple as they're here to have children this lifetime. They're here to go into sports if they've had a lifetime that what's bothering me? If they've had a past life injury in a certain part of their body, and they're coming back just to strengthen that part. So they have multi-purposes, but the one core thing is that they're always set up. Let's just say they're set up not only for specific people to show up, but specific timing for people to show up. And they show up for a particular reason, usually to propel all involved, okay, into some sort of a greater awareness or a soul growth on some level.
So do you feel that there's some kind of a setup going on with your relationships? Just think of all the different kinds of relationships that you have had in your life. And do you feel that there was some kind of something going on in the bigger picture, something going on in the background, some kind of coincidences or some kind of synchronicities that would allow you to possibly look at them being set up?
Right, because I know for myself, Ahonu, like I mentioned when we started, that I've had numerous soulmates, probably one right after the other. And looking back on what the quality of them were, how long they lasted, whether they were friends or enemies, whether they were someone who just showed up when I needed comfort.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I look back and I see the thread of them, they knew they were all stepping stones to something else.
Right.
So they all showed up exactly when they were supposed to, in the right timing, and they were like steps on a ladder. They led me to the next step.
Right.
And even though while I was in them or while I was attracted to them, I made the mistake of thinking that the steps themselves were the path. Okay, and the steps themselves sometimes turned out not to be the path at all. And at the time, I could not understand how you could have such a deep connection to somebody and that the relationship would be brief or the relationship would be friends when I wanted it to be more.
Right.
And there were a lot of aspects of that I did not understand. However, looking back, I can see how they were all planned and set up for my good. And I think in our upcoming presentations, our 3-week course, what we really do want people to get across, not only an exploration into their own soulmate relationships, whether they've had them or they've not had them, but also the different aspects of them on what can happen in them. How do you tell the difference between what's good for you and what's not good for you? How do you recognize a soulmate? What do you do with your existing relationship if you're in a relationship already and then you feel you meet a soulmate and there's decisions and choices to be made? And what about the relationships that are deeply connected on a soul level, but they're abusive in physical reality? What do you do with those? So there's all sorts of deeper implications that
Yes.
we will go into in great depth in our upcoming course. And by the end, the most important thing we want to let people come away with at the end is not only a greater understanding of themselves and the fact that they've created everything in their lives, that there's no accidents, and that there's been an order to it. It's never because somebody is failing, Ahonu. It's because, there could be missed opportunities, for example,
Right.
but there aren't failures, and that every single person alive, okay, is supported by the universe in their soul plan. And I think, we'll definitely get into the much higher spiritual level of this, how it all works. And so there'll be some self-awareness things that go on here, and just some self-exploration that'll help you, the listener, know what's going on.
So if you'd like to be able to be discerning in your relationships, if you'd like to be able to tell the difference between people in terms of that soulmate relationship, if you'd like to know whether you're sleeping with a soulmate or not, then we've got some things lined up for you. So we want to keep an eye on the bigger picture as we go through this, because this is what's unfolding in all of our lives. There's, as Aingeal Rose has mentioned, there's spiritual growth, there's growth of awareness, there's an unfolding, there's a waking up. And when we look at our relationships, we realize these are the very fodder for our souls. These are the very relationships that are feeding us in terms of self-knowledge and self-mastery.
Yes, and it's just a lack of awareness, Ahonu, of knowing who somebody is and what they mean to you and why you could have attracted them in your life. Or like I say, even if you don't have any relationship, and let's say it's been many years and you want a relationship, and you want a deep soul relationship, but you find that you're still single, you can't find the right person, we'll even be exploring what's going on with that. But ultimately, you're going to see, okay, how powerful you are.
That's right.
And that you do have some control over all this. Yes. In your life. So we will be exploring that whole bigger picture. And when we talk about the bigger picture, we're not just talking about the spiritual connection. We're talking about where these soulmate relationships lead you, either in this lifetime or where they're going to lead you in another lifetime. And how this time period that we're in right now is so important to these spiritual relationships.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. So here's a question for you now. Can you list the people in your life that you feel are soulmates? And that might seem like a very simple exercise, but when you do it, it immediately starts you to discern whether they're actually a soulmate or not. And something inside you is distinguishing, it's making that distinction for you. So list out the people in your life that you feel are soulmates and see what happens. And I guarantee you that you will find yourself putting people to one side or another side of a list. And that's going to tell you a lot about yourself and about your relationships.
Right. And we're not just talking about romantic
relationships. Not only talking about romantic.
We can include them, but we also want to bring into the equation your family, your parents, your siblings. I don't know about you, but, being a reader of the Akashic Records, many times I've had people ask me why they're in the family they're in, that they don't feel any connection at all to the family they're in. They feel like the odd person out.
Right.
And there's a lot of dynamics that are involved in that. Sometimes it is set up by a soul family, other times not. Okay, depending on what the person themselves, what they want to do individually, So there could be yeses to that. There could be no's to that. You might want to look at particular people, whether they're family or their friends or their coworkers, who continually rub you the wrong way.
Yeah.
But you find that you keep running into them at different times in your lives. They may leave the job that you're in, or you may leave, and then they show up in the grocery store, or they show up at the baseball field, and you just can't get away from them.
And there will come a point in time, too, where we're going to be talking about the ability to say no to relationships. Because a lot of times people don't have the courage, or for whatever reason, maybe they need the love or the nurturing, or for whatever reason right now. We're not going to get into it right now, but we will be. And we promise you that, where it will allow you to be able to say no, because saying no is what the bigger spiritual demand is. That's where the spiritual growth is.
Right. In some relationships, though.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely that's the case in all abusive relationships.
Absolutely, yeah.
That is the ultimate lesson. okay? But there are others where the personalities may be doing different functions for each other. In other words, here's an example. I have a friend who was on a spiritual path, and her husband was an airplane mechanic, and not at all spiritual, not interested in being awake in any way. And she would always complain about him, how he wouldn't cop on. But then one night, she heard him talking in his sleep. And when he was talking in his sleep, he started saying, hey, you guys, did you check the grids over in that area? And what about the earth grids over there? And she was astonished, right? Because as it turns out, what he was acting out in 3D life was being a financial support for the family. He himself obviously had a soul plan to do some sort of mechanical work and not 3D spiritual work, but on a whole other level.
Right.
He was doing something else. So you can have those things happen too. So, but we're really going to get into how do you discern which is which.
Yes, yes. All right, now this big issue of fate versus destiny, Aingeal Rose. I know I did write down at some point the actual dictionary definition of each one of these, and I've forgotten.
I can tell you what it is.
But Aingeal Rose is going to tell us. So let's start then with what's the difference, Aingeal Rose?
Yeah, what's the difference? What we found was that fate is when events seem to be happening to you in your life that you have no control over. In other words,
fate.
That's fate. Fate is where it feels like a predestined turn of events. It may, let's say a repeat pattern that always brings you into an outcome you don't want. Let's say, for example, and
when people talk like about that fateful day, it's like you couldn't do anything about it.
Like it happened to them.
It was inevitable in some way.
It was inevitable. That's right. And they feel they have no control over it.
Okay. And destiny?
Where destiny is more of a soul plan that you make ahead of time. And like I mentioned earlier, soulmate relationships are always agreed upon beforehand. In other words, each person involved agrees to play a particular role for the other person for a specific reason. And you do have control over that in the sense that when it shows up, there are opportunities that you have free will choice about. Okay, in other words, you can say yes, you can say no, you can make all sorts of alternate decisions about them.
Do you know the way I understood that? And I hope this will be of help to you, because destiny sounds very like destination, and it has the same root word. And I often think, I remember somebody describing to me one time about when a rocket is flying to the moon, for example, it doesn't start off and say, right, there's an exact straight line from the Earth to the moon. In fact, it makes millions and millions and millions of different orbits and corrections along the way as it's going.
That's true.
So these corrections,
that's a good example.
These corrections in your life are where you're saying no to this and you're saying yes to that, and you're deciding for this and you're choosing that. These are the corrections that you're making towards your destination, towards your destiny.
That's true.
Yeah. Isn't that the way to help
it's a good way
understand the difference? All right. Do you think everybody deserves love, Aingeal Rose?
Well, I know everybody deserves love. And how I know is because of all the time I've spent in the Akashic Records talking to Source, that I know the one common theme through the universe is love. And what I mean by that is an energy, describe it as you will, right? But it's an energy that is for your good. It's an energy that nourishes you, that supports you, that is there to say yes to whatever it is you desire, whether that's positive or negative. And
just let me say, Aingeal Rose, that if you're listening or watching this now and you feel that you're not in a loving relationship or you're not getting that love that you feel you deserve, stay with us, because these are the kind of barriers we're breaking down.
It is.
This is what we're bringing to you. This is what we're exposing. The fact that everyone deserves love. And what we want to do is we want to grow more discerning, and we want to grow our own frequency so that we attract that which we vibrate to. Yes.
And there is a degree of knowing yourself in this process. And you mentioned earlier about, choices and decisions that we make along the way. And there's a lot of little things involved in this. In other words, it would be very easy for somebody who's not in a relationship and hasn't been for years and wants to be, to come to the conclusion that they're not meant to have love, or they must have bad karma, or they must have,
their fate is not to be loved.
That's right. Yeah. They're fated, they're cursed.
Yes.
But that isn't true. And what we're going to show in our upcoming presentation and our course is how divine order has worked through their lives in a positive way, set up by them.
Yes.
Okay. And also to show them how they can really find out what that is and change it around if they don't like it. But the aim is to affirm that everybody is always powerful and everybody can have what they desire. The only, in regards to love anyway, okay, because I do believe that there's other things that you attempt to manifest that don't actually come to pass, and it could be because you've set up a soul plan not to have that in your life for some reason, that it might waylay you in some way. Mm-hmm. But certainly that's not the case when it comes to love.
Everybody deserves love. Now, Aingeal Rose, we're suggesting that you go for it. Go for it in all ways in your life. Go for it in your relationships. No matter what way, what level you feel those relationships are, go for it. Go all out for it, because this is a wonderful, wonderful life. And everybody deserves love, and so do you. So what do you want to say about that, Aingeal Rose, in terms of going for it?
Well, I just want to encourage people to let's delve into this deeper. I hope they'll come with us to delve into this deeper, because we are going to cover a lot of the ins and outs, many of the things I have learned throughout the course of my own experience, where I've come full circle and saw the whole plan of the whole thing, saw the whole pattern unfolding and why.
Right.
And I think that's the real realization I've come to, is that how is a person's life set up to be divinely ordered for them for their highest good, whether it's relationships or family members or coworkers or whatever, their children, for example. We're going to be looking at the greater destiny, and we're going to be talking about how you can discover your own destiny and your own plan, and how to be discriminatory with things that try to set you back in that regard, and how to put more energy towards the things that you know you want. Okay, so, and also there are people too, Ahonu, who are in soulmate relationships and they're just not exactly sure that it is a soulmate. They may think it is, or they're quite not sure. So we'll be able to show them how that, and they'll be able to tell.
One of the things that would help you to be able to discern that is this free download that we have for you right now. It's a heart center meditation that Aingeal Rose devised and recorded and narrated, that takes you into the heart, into your own heart, and lets you explore in there, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, so that you're able to be discerning about those relationships and able to grow that frequency of your own heart, so that you will be able to attract and continue and grow that spiritual relationship. So that's a free download for you. We're going to give you the link to that in a few short minutes. Now, the next thing, Aingeal Rose, we want to go through is, well, I more or less have covered how the meditation helps, because it is something that it's very easy to practice. It only takes a few minutes. I think it might only be 7 or 8 minutes long, but it's very, very helpful. And then the download to that, if you've registered for this webinar online, you will get that the meditation in your email. But if not, it is also on the screen here. It's quite a long little URL, but if you want to contact us at aingealroseandahonu.com, aingealroseandahonu.com, we'll also send it to you. So there are multiple ways of getting that free download of the Heart Center meditation. So, Aingeal Rose, let's do a quick little summary of what we've covered today.
Well, how we talked about relationships in general,
Mm-hmm.
like the fact that the world is based on relationships. And everybody desires relationships in some form, and there are all kinds. There are some that are just new relationships in this world, new introductions of souls, for example, to share life with. And then there are others that are deeper connections that come from other lifetimes. And so we talked about those spiritual connections.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a wide variety of the ways they materialize and the forms that they materialize in. And so we talked about how we will be exploring what those are and how to tell the difference. And, we asked them to make a list of people in their lives that they thought could be soulmates, and just maybe make 2 columns of the people who show up the most in their lives, the people who they share their life with, not to leave out friends, and don't leave out pets, because pets
Right.
can be soulmates.
That's another interesting point too.
I know there's some people who say, I know my dog is not a dog, or I know my cat is, a wise old goddess.
Or my horse is my soulmate.
My horse, like the way my daughter has gotten her 2 horses, were very synchronistic events that were meant to be.
Yes.
So
yes.
Even that, put those down.
Yeah. And then we spoke about fate versus destiny, and Aingeal Rose remembered the classic definition of both fate and destiny. So they were important little points. So what's next? Aingeal Rose has been teasing us and teasing you with what we've put together for you. And what we've got next is a journey of consciousness through soulmate relationships. And we've broken it into 3 modules, more or less. And this could be, you decide yourself that if you want this to be 3 weeks, 3 days, 3 months, whatever, because there's a good deal of information and knowledge and experience and exposure in all of this. But in the module 1,
are you talking about if they do it online? Huh?
Yeah, this is the online course. This is a
downloadable
home study course. You can do it in your own time, at your own pace. And in module 1 of that, we're talking about soulmates and karma. Now, we are going into much more detail than what we've been able to cover here today. We really just barely scratched the surface. And the karma aspect of all of this is quite important too. And we will be dispelling a lot of myths and untruths that people believe around soulmates.
Right. We'll also be going into the connection between particular soulmates and the chakras that they may represent. And most people don't think of this aspect of it, but it is true that the connections that you have with people and let's just say the mastery that is a potential, does have a connection to particular chakras. And yet some of them are not. Some of them are just past life in relationships that need completion or need further growth.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be exploring those, and you will have meditations to experience those as well and do some exploration.
And can I just clarify something here? Because for some people, when we talk about past lives, if you come from a religious background, and I come from Holy Catholic Ireland, and I remember having a resistance to the whole concept of past lives and all of that, don't be afraid of these kinds of things, because as we explore soulmate relationships, you'll find that there may be memories come up, there may be connections that come up, that you may start to open up to the possibility. And that's a whole new area of exploration, whole new area of spiritual growth, whole new area of possibilities. So just remain open to these things. Who knows what's in line and in store for us in terms of our journey of consciousness. And then the next thing in module 3, Aingeal Rose, I'm going to ask you to really go into a little bit of detail about this, but also leave it wide open, because that twin flame prospect is a whole new ballgame altogether. Yes.
And some people think soulmates and twin flames are the same. They're not the same. So we will be going into depth about twin flame relationships. We'll be telling our own stories, because we have our own stories about that. And what are the differences? What are the qualities of each? Like I say, they're a whole different ballgame. Twin flames are at a much higher frequency level, let's just say, than soulmates. And you may have met a twin flame in your life too. So our soulmate webinars are really, they're not designed to get into twin flames too deeply, because that's
this will
another
show
course.
This will be preparation.
But it will be an
Yes.
explanation of the differences.
Yeah.
And
it'll show you how your current relationships, if they're not twin flame, how your current soulmate relationships are all in preparation. They're all in a build-up. They're all
they're like a ladder.
Yes, exactly.
A ladder of ascension
for a twin flame relationship.
Right.
So we'll help you understand your relationships in that light.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So what does the course include, Aingeal?
You can talk about that. Okay. That's your forte.
Well, we've done it. We're delivering it to you in multiple formats for easy assimilation. We're giving it to you in video format. We're giving it to you also in audio download. So this is the kind of thing that you see a lot of people going jogging or in the gym, and they're walking on a treadmill or something, and they've got their earbuds in. You can listen to it. You also can read it, because we're giving you the transcripts of all of this too. So it's very helpful to have it in multiple different formats. And also we've got lots of little bonuses and surprises, including meditations and various downloads and things that we're going to give you, as well as that, all free, all included. And the other thing about this format is that it's available to you 24/7, 365 days of the year. You have lifetime access. It's not like it's going to be closed off if you don't download it. You have access to it whenever you like, for as long as you like. So it's a very beautiful and wonderful facility that we're giving to you. So there's a buy now button on the screen, and there's a link down below where you can secure this. And it's important for you to do this now, because if you're watching this at all, it means that soulmate relationships are something that you're querying, you're questioning, you're trying to come to grips with, you're trying to find understanding around it, and this will do it for you.
Right. And also, if they're trying to understand their own spiritual journey, there will be a lot of things included in the presentation that'll help you get through some more self-discovery and help you understand what you could have planned for yourself, and how all of that is coming together or working for your good, leaving you even with maybe a good knowledge of what your next step is possible.
Yes. Now, when Aingeal Rose mentioned your next step and the possibilities, we're finding, and many people are finding across the globe, that there is a kind of a global awakening. And you're here obviously because you want to find out more about what's going on in the bigger picture, what's going on with your current relationships. And that's all part of a great awakening, and it's a wonderful thing. So get hold of this and let us join together in our union with this, so that we can understand what these relationships are all about and what the bigger picture is all about.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And blessings from myself, Ahonu, and from Aingeal Rose.